How did a movement, originally started by two men in defense of their obese wives, lead to it being one of the biggest contenders of the Victim Olympics? Join us as we take a look at how fat acceptance culture transmogrified into victimhood and the culture of death. The fat acceptance culture has come a long way from its inception in the 1960s. From what seemed to be a disorganized, irresolute band of misfits who staged protests against the discrimination they were facing from society, to a radicalized consortium with a clear agenda they are dead set on seeing being fulfilled. In this segment, we will traverse the grassroots days of the movement, the problems faced by and within the community, the countless coup d'etat that took place, the real victims in all of this, and who is running the show. Without further ado, cue the title sequence.
The fat acceptance movement, also known as fat pride, fat empowerment, and fat activism, is a social movement which seeks to eliminate the social stigma of fatness from social attitudes by pointing out these social obstacles which are faced by fat people to the general public.
Officially the biggest health crisis in American history. 34% of American adults, 17% of our children are considered obese, and today a government panel issued a brand new plea for all of us to change how we eat. Here's Lindsay.
I love my weight. I love my size, and I'd like to be bigger. My ideal weight is 1,000 pounds. That's something that I think of in my head, fantasy-wise, that I like. So 1,000 pounds. The double top quarter pounder with the fries. I like the chicken selects, also the hamburgers. I love Big Macs and more fries. So this is a good snack for lunch. Currently, I believe it's around 600, 610. There's no scales that can weigh me. I have to have those specially made. Buy 2 quarts and get the white green. Okay. Chocolate.
Chocolate, and then you get white bread.
Let me get the, I'll try this one out.
If you're a fat person who is not trying to lose weight, I love you. Keep it up.
So when I was in 4th grade, I was 4 feet tall. I was 144 pounds, and my doctor told me that I was morbidly obese, and it was a very self-image wrecking thing for me because he used language that made it seem like I needed to change as opposed to just assessing where I was.
As a woman in a plus size theater community, it's like I always got the funny roles or the really unattractive roles, and I'm like, I'm big, that doesn't mean I'm hilarious.
Girl, we could talk about this forever.
Yeah, so that's super powerful because performing and becoming into yourself, you either have to be overly confident and fake it till you make it, or it will tear you down.
As an adult, don't like dressing up for Halloween. And I'm pretty sure that's associated with the fact that as a fat kid, there weren't costumes that fit me right off the bat. I used to go to Party City as a kid or teen with my friends. They'd be able to pick out a costume, just right in a bag, ready. What did I do? I found a mask, a wig, something that didn't require specific attire for my body. And it just never made it fun for me. I'm sure there are other former fat kids who love Halloween and dressing up. Yep. And I love the ambiance, I love spooky shit. I want to dress up. So are you like me? Or do you love dressing up for Halloween as a former fat?
How do we all identify? Do we identify, what do we use to label ourselves if you have one?
PHAT. Thank you.
You know.
I hate Halloween. And they already know me. I went to comment saying, oh, you're fat. Shouldn't you love Halloween? It's actually because I'm fat that I hate Halloween. Because it was the one day of the year that reminded me of how big I actually was and how no one else was my size. Every year, I'd have nothing to wear because no costumes at the store fit me. So my absolutely incredible mother would end up making me a costume. The LOL Slay Bit, pretty cheap, the homemade Rubik's Cube costume and the wig. When you're Halloween is like the world's best holiday. You know, you dress up, eat a bunch of candy, have fun with your friends. I feel like when you grow up fat, you're kind of robbed of these simple childhood pleasures. So now as an adult, I don't even know how to enjoy Halloween. And that's honestly just my costume trauma. Let me know if you want a part 2 where I tell you how horrible adults were to me when it came to candy.
Fat people are allowed to eat what they want without feeling guilty about it. Get over it.
I'll say fat, and then people will be like, oh my god, fat! And then I'll be like, it's not inherently a bad word, it's an adjective.
Next to me, well, have you eaten? And I said, yeah, I had some pizza earlier. And they said, you need to eat something like a bit more healthy. Now, there are a few words that I don't allow when somebody somebody comes into my house and healthy is one of them.
I think the odd one out is probably somebody who lived as a fat person but lost the weight. But usually, a lot of the time, people that do grow up fat or go through weight loss journey, they end up being more fat phobic. That's not in all cases. It's not in all cases, but it does. That's fine. If you want to lose weight, do that. But you don't need to project that onto everyone else.
There are people that are plus size that are faster than you. There are people that are plus size that are in better conditions than the average human being.
It really just angers me that there's people out here manipulating minds of people who have an obvious food addiction to not worry about being obese and how beautiful it is. Telling people that obesity doesn't have any detrimental effects and there's such thing as health at every size.
I think it's difficult too because I grew up fat. I've been fat my entire life, and I've always envied in a way I've always wondered what it would be like to live in a thin body and how people treat you differently. I've dreamt about it.
Being fat or plus size does not mean that we're not active, that we're not nice people, that we're not worthy. It really sucks when people treat you differently because you're a size 18 rather than a size 2 or 4. So I moved to the US when I was 16 and I started getting weight. The life here is different. I wasn't as active, I wasn't doing sports anymore, and then I was on birth control. So for me it was hormonal imbalance that made me gain a lot of weight.
I couldn't tell how I had an eating disorder when I was younger and how I overcame that, and then I slowly started drifting back to it, and I'm trying to lose weight now in a more healthy manner. So I wish I could have told that story to the group.
We now have doctors that are telling us that obesity is just a myth and has absolutely no health risks. We have doctors who write books titled Health at every size, where they say obesity can be completely healthy. Bloggers saying there is no such thing as healthy food, everything's created equal, and we should never let these white males stop us from living our lives with their racial BMI chart. Well, do you know what is starting to bring some of these fat activists down? No, it's not the use of the word obesity, it's heart attacks and heart complications. And you might be thinking that this is a very insensitive video, but I can't feel sorry for someone who promoted obesity but then dies at a pretty young age from it.
The Fat Acceptance Movement was founded in the late 1960s, initially known as Fat Pride, Fat Power, or Fat Liberation. Its actions at first were unplanned, unstructured, and disorganized.
150 fat people, most of them female, from all across the country, come together in a kind of consciousness-raising session.
At one point, in New York Central Park, in 1967, a fat inn, called by radio personality Steve Post, was staged by 500 people eating, burning diet bugs, carrying signs and photographs of a model renowned for her thin figure named Twiggy. They did this to protest against the anti-fat bias. In 1967, Lou Lauterbach wrote an article in the Saturday Evening Post called "More People Should Be Fat" in response to discrimination against his wife. The article led to a meeting between Lauterbach and Bill Fabry, who founded the first organization for fat people and their supporters. Originally named the National Association to Aid Fat Americans, and currently called the National Association to Advance Fat Acceptance, NAFA. It was founded in 1969 by Bill Fabry in response to the discrimination against his wife. Since 1991, Fabry has worked as a director with the Council on Size and Weight Discrimination, specializing in the history of the size acceptance movement. It was only the beginning of the first wave, ultimately followed by two more waves, quite similar to a certain movement linked as one of the organizations spearheading the fat acceptance movement to what it is today. In all respects, in the beginning, the fat acceptance movement had merit. Overweight people faced prejudice and discrimination, and a sect of the community saw obese people as lazy, unproductive, good-for-nothing lesser beings. That prompted society into some of the worst treatment faced by the obese.